Thank you so much for tuning in to Think Tech. I'm your host, Attila Suresh. Here at Think Tech, we have our show, Next Big Thing, where we are the lighthouse for great ideas. And today with us on the show, we have Raj Goel. He's joining us via Skype in New York, and he is the author of The Most Important Secrets to Getting Great Results from IT, Everything Your Computer Consultant Never Told You. And we have him on the line via Skype to tell us the secrets that all of you have been dying to know. Raj, thank you so much for joining us. Say hi to our audience.
Hi, audience. Attila, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Raj, you and I, we've talked before, and that's been because we had some technical difficulties in the studio, and it was a great, wonderful conversation. I appreciate you spending the time to tell us all the secrets, and maybe we can condense that to just a few 15 to 20 minutes. And talk about maybe just why you wrote the book, and then I'm going to ask you some hard questions.
Fair enough. Why I wrote the book. It was a personal challenge initially. I've been telling myself for years, over a decade, I was going to write a book. And it's just, to me, it's a rite of passage that once you're an intelligent adult and you've got some life experience, it's incumbent upon you to share that, your opinions and your wisdom with others. So initially it was an intellectual challenge, and then it turned out to be one of the best things I've ever done professionally.
Well, is that because you've disclosed, it's kind of like a magician revealing all the secrets to the customers. Isn't this kind of what you're doing with the your book?
The title is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, there are really no secrets. I could have called it the Common Sense Guide to IT, or Buying IT, or Questions to Ask Your IT Provider, but really people like secrets, and I suppose you could say I'm a magician. I'm showing you how the three-card Monte is done. What I'm really laying to bear and bringing forward are the conversations clients and IT providers don't have until it's too late, or they never have at all. And it really was my attempt at plugging a hole in the dike. I didn't want to get a client, chase after them, sell them, and then get into arguments or fights or have a nasty corporate divorce. That's painful. And I really wanted them to know up front what my philosophy is about managing IT, where I come from, what's my credibility like, so that they can decide up front, is this a person I want to do business with? When we look at lawyers, when we look at accountants, we ask our friends. We don't really know how good a lawyer, doctor, or another professional is until we've used them. Versus a restaurant, you can read reviews. Movies, we don't watch them without reading the reviews or while looking at the trailers. The book is really a trailer for our IT services.
Well, and that brings me to one of the more interesting questions, though, is that in the past few years, as you know, I mean, you and I are in the same business. This is why I can ask this question. 5-6 years ago, a good computer was a few $1,000s. Now it's a few hundred. We didn't have tablets to do things with. Now we have tablets that are as powerful as the computers from a few years ago. We have phones that can do what computers couldn't do. Everything's going to the cloud. Is our job going to be obsolete? Is this book going to even mean anything to anyone 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I don't know, but there are a couple things you said, so let's take them apart one by one. Yes. Cheap, low-cost computers are a couple $100, and for a home user, that's probably perfectly fine. What we find is the cost of a corporate desktop really hasn't changed overly much in the last 2 decades. Yes, in 1984, a new IBM PC was $3,500. Now you can get a really good enterprise desktop for about $2,000, $1,500 on sale. You don't really get good enterprise business-grade machines below $1,000. There is a price sticking point. And secondly, technology has become more democratic. We have more technology in our lives. We have more of everything in our lives. So yes, we have tablets, we have smartphones. But that does not mean that our jobs or what we do is going away. Some of the things that we do today may not be there in 10 years. Some stuff will move to the cloud. Some will snap right back. At the end of the day, we are selling a service no different than a restaurant. Just because people have ovens and gas burners at home doesn't mean restaurants go out of business. And just because McDonald's exists doesn't mean your favorite restaurant is going to close the doors tomorrow. You and I both sell a niche service to a select audience. There's always going to be room in the marketplace for people who want it cheap, people who want a commodity, people who want to do it themselves, and people who want to pay a professional to get it done right. And the reality is we live in an outsourced economy. Everything we do involves tens or hundreds of thousands of pairs of hands touching it. Whether it's your food, whether it's your soda, whether it's your beer, whether it's your bourbon, my favorite beverage of choice, whether it's your car, whether it's your clothing, we live in a global economy. And as a result, there will always be a market for people who want to outsource some of their operations to professionals that meet their personal, political, moral, ethical, and financial standards. And the real nice thing about our business is the things we do today may change, but the laws aren't going away, complexity isn't going away. And yes, things we could do 20 years ago with a team of 20, you can now, a 5-year-old can do on the internet today, but that does not take away the need for bringing new things to market. There are technologies you and I play with today, like Skyping. Video conferencing today, we're doing this for next to $0. 20 years ago, this was the thesis of the AT&T You Will ads. Science fiction is becoming reality. I don't know what communication is going to be like in 10 years from now. Might be 3D, might be holograms, might be telepresence. Whatever it is, it's going to require smart techno mavens and business-driven providers to help others make sense of it. You and I both have lawyers, we have accountants, we have dentists, we have surgeons and cardiologists taking care of us. That's the same mentality we bring to our clientele.
Well, and that's the thing, was the thing I heard. You need to know a good doctor, you need to know a good mechanic, and in today's day, you need to know a good IT person too. And,
Absolutely.
So it's good that you've written a book that actually addresses these concerns. Now, I know that our world is changing a great deal. I know in particular in the medical field, there's now the HIPAA compliance that we're starting to deal with. Is there any other compliance-related, what's the best way to put this, IT opportunities for us to pursue in the next few years that maybe others might see as challenges and we could see as opportunities?
In every challenge is an opportunity, and every opportunity is a challenge. I'm sure somebody said it before me. Yes, I mean, HIPAA is, believe it or not, almost 20 years old. I've been involved in HIPAA since 1997 before it was law. And yes, it's now become a bit more fashionable or a bit more commonplace, but the real challenge to HIPAA are yet to come. And in that vein, a quick history of compliance. Until 1900s, you really didn't have compliance in most fields. In the 50s, especially in the U.S., you saw large manufacturers and mostly Department of Defense-related firms deal with information security with technology appropriately. In the 80s, the banking sector was put under the gun. In 1997, healthcare got put under the gun. Today, in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, there are over 250 some odd regulations that deal with privacy and security. And as we're seeing with the Target breach, the Neiman Marcus breach, the breaches that are coming out every single day, you're going to see more and more regulations being passed, some sensible, some stupid. At the end of the day, someone's going to have to make sense of it all. You're going to need a really good lawyer, a really good IT practitioner, a really good compliance expert, and then someone to pay for it all.
And hopefully we can capitalize on that. So other than HIPAA, what else is coming down the pipeline? What's in your crystal ball?
Well, before we talk about what's coming down the pipeline, let's look at what's already in the pipeline. You've got HIPAA, you've got GLBA, you've got SOX 404, you've got PCI, you've got 47 state privacy laws, you've got 50 state medical privacy laws, you've got 50 state medical records protection laws, there's so much complexity already out there. And then coming down the pipeline, the New York State Bar passed Ethics Rules 1.6 about 2 years ago, which is equivalent to HIPAA, where HIPAA was in 97. It's basically client privacy standards for attorneys. It's voluntary. It's not a law. It's just passed by the New York State Bar. A couple of the state bars have adopted it. So I suspect it'll go the way of SB 1386. When California passed their state privacy breach law, they're the only ones that had it. Then we had the choice point breach back in '05, I believe, '04, '05. And then within 2 years, 36 states had privacy breach laws. Now today 47 do. So I suspect that we've already seen three state bars adopt a law firm or attorney breach privacy breach laws or breach standards. I expect that'll become de facto for the entire country in a similar model. It'll take 5 or 10 years before law firms and solo practitioners and so on are subject to some client privacy standards and data security standards, because currently attorneys are fairly exempt from most of that. You're going to see something similar coming down for CPAs, construction firms, any field of business that deals with customer data, including us IT firms. We're going to face these regulations in the next 5, 10, 20 years. It's coming.
Well, anywhere where there's money involved. But speaking of money, we do have to run to a quick break. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back in a moment.
Jay Fidel, that's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on Think Tech Hawaii. We'll see you there.
We're back, we're live, and you're watching Think Tech. I'm your host, Attila Sores. Our show, Next Big Thing, is a lighthouse for great ideas. We give people with great ideas a place to share them with the world. With us today is Raj Goel, and he's the author of a new book. It's called The Most Important Secrets to Getting Results from Your IT Professional. He's joining us via Skype, and his company, Brainlink, is a managed services company in the New York area, and he's sharing his background on a few things. But you know, Raj, one thing I gotta ask you, which is, what are you gonna do about someone who comes to you, let's pick a hypothetical situation, who comes to you and says, you know, Raj, I've got all this already figured out, you're not needed, and I'm gonna predict that whatever, you are gonna tell me I can just Google this. And in some ways they can, and in some ways, yeah, obviously an IT professional can sort of come to this, but I think you've made a pretty good convincing case as to why they need to hire you. But why do we need to regulate any of this stuff in the first place? I thought there were some pretty good safeguards in place that would protect all of our consumers and all the people that trust their data to medical practices and construction firms and retailers. Why do we need regulation at all?
So you asked me two questions. Which one would you like to answer first? The one about I don't need you, I can Google this, or the one about why do we need regulation?
Well, let's talk about regulation. That one seems like a bigger question.
Fair enough. So, a brief history of economy and money. 1,000 years ago, if you were wealthy, your wealth was stored in gold, diamonds, jewelry, physical objects. And we built castles and armies and fortresses to protect our wealth as a society. 500 years ago, money changed from physical goods to paper, to paper currency. And from that, we have rise of stock certificates, and we have bearer bonds and bank notes, bank letters, and so on. So over time, money or wealth has transferred from heavy physical objects to shiny, rare physical objects to a piece of paper. Now our wealth is all electronic, and our real wealth is no longer dollars and cents. It's data. Information is the new currency, and so in a real world, in the ideal world, we wouldn't need regulation if people did what they were supposed to do. But the reality is, not everybody's tech savvy, not everybody's security focused, and most business owners, small and large, will only do what they are required to do. I mean, at some level, we are all just 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds only do what mommy and daddy demand they do, with the inducement of rewards or the threat of penalties. And if you look at most businesses, they act like 5-year-olds. So we need more regulation. In the U.S., our culture's kind of messed up. If you look at Canada looked at this mess and said, we're going to have one law for the entire country, PIPEDA. And no matter where you are in Canada, either you follow PIPEDA or 3 provinces said, PIPEDA is too easy, we'll make our laws stricter. So as a Canadian business owner, you're dealing with 1 or 2 laws, either PIPEDA or your provincial law. In the U.S., we don't do that. Every Senate committee, every House committee, every organization with an axe to grind has their own pet law. There is really no difference between, say, Gramm-Leach-Bliley, which regulates banking customer privacy, from Sarbanes-Oxley 404, from HIPAA, from PCI. And if we were a sane, rational country, we would wipe the slate clean, have one standard for data privacy and customer privacy and protecting the sanctity of our customers' information.
Yeah, but you and I both know that's not going to happen. So why do we have so many different regulations?
As long as Congress is in session, lobbyists will always find a way to finagle something.
So lobbyists are the ones that are creating all these regulations that we have to deal with. And if we were to...
But they are responding to market forces. They're responding to congressional laziness and stupidity. In my opinion, there was no real reason for us to have HIPAA and GLBA and Sarbanes-Oxley in succession. They could have just as easily said, we've already got HIPAA on the books, let's rewrite it or re-update it and use more neutral language that is not industry specific. And once we had GLBA, we didn't need Sarbanes-Oxley 404. But every committee and every regulator wants their own pet fiefdom. So the banking guys wanted GLBA, the finance guys wanted Sarbanes-Oxley, healthcare guys wanted HIPAA, the lawyers want Ethics Rule 1.6, then we have Red Flag. We have so many governmental fiefdoms and so many governmental tribes, each wanting their own say, that we have this Byzantine mess of compliance. As a business owner, I find it frustrating. As a taxpayer, I find it disgusting. As a security consultant, it's job security for life. So I'm kind of ambivalent about it.
Well, I mean, but where's this all leading? I mean, other countries that don't have this kind of regulation can cut through that red tape. Perfect example is China decided they're going to build a bunch of nuclear power plants. So they went out and they built a bunch of nuclear power plants. Red tape cut. They put it all in. It was all a assembly line mechanism from Westinghouse power plants because they understand the need to meet, as the world's work belt. They have this need to create product and they need the energy to do so. So
let's not get into the differences between democratic capitalist countries and autocratic or controlled capitalist countries. If we limit our discussion to the Western world and to established democracies, U.S., Canada, UK, France, most of Western Europe, what you're going to see is something similar to and somewhat different than the U.S. It's really not fair to compare what China is doing today with the U.S. Theirs is a relatively young market economy. They have a very, very high concentration of wealth and a very small number of people. I mean, we had Occupy Wall Street to talk about the 1%ers. In China, the 0.00001% controls 90% of the wealth. You really have an oligarchy or a plutocracy there, and it has its own different challenges. And I'm not an expert on China. I'm not an expert on the legal system. So if we can limit ourselves to Western economies, there I think I can play it a bit safer. And if you compare U.S. to Canada or U.S. to UK, I think we could have a really good discussion without going really far afield.
That's fair enough. And so you mentioned Canada. They had
Yep.
fewer regulations. And how is that affecting them?
Well, Canada, on the one hand, got it right in that they've got one national standard and three or four provinces with their own superseding exemptions, which is great. And the really good thing about Canada is they really empowered their privacy commissioner with some real teeth. And we know this because back in the early 2000s, Google and Microsoft, both independently, spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, building their health portals, Google Health and Microsoft Health Vault. And it was going to be this huge thing as an end run around HIPAA that patients could use to store their medical data. And in the US, no one said anything except for the security nerds. In Canada, within weeks of it launching, the Canadian Pippa Azar commissioner called Google and Microsoft into our office and said, "Folks, what you're doing is illegal in my country. Either fix your privacy standards or get out." And as a result, within a matter of weeks, if not or months, both Google and Microsoft gave Canadians more privacy rights than they gave the Americans. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with a lot of other social media and cloud providers. You go above the 49th parallel in Canada, and magically you get more privacy rights because their law demands it. One of the nice things that happened as a result of that is the FTC took notice, and when they wrote the FTC health breach rules, and when Obama came into office, he signed the HITECH Act, shutting down the open gaping hole that Google and Microsoft were exploiting with their health portals. Within a matter of months, both these products got killed because they were arbitraging privacy. Right now, the cloud and social media providers are doing a really good job of arbitraging taxes to avoid paying taxes, and they're arbitraging privacy rights across the world for their benefit. In the US, Facebook is a US corporation. If you're a Facebook user, you have almost no legal rights. You go to Germany, you're a German citizen. And because German law says you can tell Facebook, give me all my data, and they have to, a 23-year-old German law student, not even a lawyer, a law student, 3-4 years ago, wrote Facebook an email or a letter and said, give me all my data. And they gave him back a CD containing 800 pages of data on a dummy profile he had created as a test experiment. So we as Americans really should demand that we get from our vendors what they give to consumers in other countries. We should also, as American citizens, really demand from Congress that we have in the digital world same rights we have in the physical world. For example, let's take email. What most people don't realize is email is really nothing more than a postcard. When you send postcard to the postal service, anybody can read who it's from, who it's to, what the message is, and the post office photographs that postcard dozens of times between sending and delivering. It's perfectly legal. But when you send something in a letter, the post office does not have the right to rip open your envelope or steam it open and read your mail without a court order. We don't have that same right on the internet. All your emails are postcards. Anybody can read them. Many, many people and corporations, governments do. And the only reason we don't have similar rights is because it's in the interests of governments and corporations to deny us proper email security. And we have to demand it. We should demand that we have same rights in cyberspace that we have in meat space.
Well, because we only have a couple of minutes here, what would you like to see happen in the next 5 years that would make you feel like we're making progress in the right direction as a society in terms of privacy?
The first thing I'd like to see is a minor's right to be forgotten. In the real world, if you're a minor under the age of 18, and most crimes that you commit, with the exception, I believe, of murder and rape, except for a few capital crimes, you as a minor have the legal right to have your record sealed at age 18, and they remain sealed for life unless you break the law again to certain degrees. We should demand that our children, yours, mine, our neighbors, and their friends, have the right to be forgotten off the internet. Kids will do stupid stuff. They will do embarrassing stuff. You and I both did stuff before we were 18, which we've either forgotten or we hope our friends are forgotten. Our kids don't have that privilege. We should demand as parents that our kids have the right to have their digital activity sealed at the age of majority. And yes, Facebook and Google and Yahoo will complain it's impossible. It's not impossible. It makes their business model more difficult. It makes it harder for them to make a quick buck off of naive children. But you know what? When Coke first came out, they were selling ads. Start your baby young. They had ads in newspapers and magazines of mothers bottle feeding their kids Coca-Cola. When cigarettes came out in the early 20s, we used to have cigarette ads that told pregnant mothers, smoke a cool or smoke
Right. We have to be a little bit more progressive as a society. You're totally right. Well, Raj, unfortunately, we are out of time here. We have to run, but thank you so much for jumping in. I appreciate your feedback. And for those of you interested, go ahead and go to rajgoel.com, RAGGOEL.com, and you can get up more information about his book and some of his interesting insights on things. Thank you so much, Raj.
And you type it, it's RAJGOEL.
RAJ, oh, sorry about that. RAJGOEL.com. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Think Tech.